Ooh, and His grace is sufficient for all. And His grace is sufficient for all. Ooh, and His grace is sufficient for all. And His grace is sufficient for all. He is the Lord of Lords. He is the King of Kings. And His grace is sufficient for all. And His grace is sufficient for all. And His grace is sufficient for all. He is the King of peace. He is the King of the cross. And His grace is sufficient for all. Ooh, and His grace is sufficient for all. 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 He is the King of the poor. He is the King of justice. And His grace is and His grace is sufficient for all. 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 He is the King of forgiveness. He is the King of peace. And His grace is sufficient for all. 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 He is the Lord of Lords. He is the King of Kings. And His grace is sufficient for all. 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 Ooh, and His grace is sufficient for all. Ooh.